In the heart of the Midwest, where cornfields stretch endlessly and church bells mark the rhythm of each Sunday morning, lies the small town of Willow Creek. It isn't a place marked on many maps, nor does it make headlines in the evening news. But for the families who live here, Willow Creek is everything. Its charm doesn't come from towering buildings or bustling freeways, but from the way neighbors wave at one another, the way diner waitresses know everyone's coffee order, and the way the local school stands as the beating heart of the community. The Willow Creek Middle School sits quietly at the end of Maple Street, a red brick building with fading white trim and a flagpole that leans ever so slightly after decades of harsh winters. Every morning, yellow buses line up like a parade, doors swinging open as children spill out with backpacks too big for their shoulders, laughter echoing across the parking lot. The smell of fresh-cut grass mixes with the faint aroma of cafeteria pancakes drifting from the kitchen. Among the sea of students rushing toward the double doors, one figure stands calmly near the entrance. Ms. Laura Bennett. Laura is in her mid-40s, though her gentle smile and the sparkle in her hazel eyes make her seem younger. She wears her auburn hair tied back in a loose bun, strands falling over her face as she greets students one by one. "Good morning, Sarah. Hello, James. Ready for the math quiz today, Emily?" Her voice is warm and steady, carrying the kind of reassurance that only comes from years of loving what she does. For Laura, teaching isn't just a job. It's a calling. She has dedicated nearly 2 decades to this school, guiding children not only through history lessons and grammar rules but through the trials of growing up. Many of her students see her as more than a teacher, they see her as a safe place, a quiet anchor in their ever-changing world. But beneath her steady presence lies a secret that few would ever guess. Her black shoes, scuffed at the edges, the leather thin and faded, carry the burden of her long days. They look ordinary at first glance, the kind of shoes any teacher might wear. But if one were to look closer, they would see the faint line where the sole has begun to separate, a tear she carefully hides by walking slowly, never dragging her feet. To her students, Ms. Bennett is put together, graceful, unshaken. To Laura herself, every step is a reminder of the sacrifices she makes to keep her dignity intact. The camera lingers for a moment on her shoes as she stands at the door, then pans upward to her face, glowing with kindness as she waves the last busload of children inside. Inside the classroom, sunlight filters through blinds, casting striped patterns across rows of desks. Posters with motivational quotes line the walls: "Believe in yourself, kindness matters, the future begins here." A jar of sharpened pencils sits at the front desk beside a stack of worn textbooks. It's not a glamorous room, but it's alive with the voices of children, with questions, with laughter. Laura places her worn leather satchel on the desk and begins writing the day's agenda on the chalkboard. Her handwriting, neat and looping, fills the room with quiet authority. She glances back at her students as they settle into their seats, exchanging stories about the weekend football game, the new diner in town, or the latest episode of a favorite TV show. Narrator's voice continues softly: "In every community, there are people who give more than they have, people whose strength isn't measured by wealth or possessions but by the light they bring into the lives of others." For Willow Creek, that person was Ms. Laura Bennett. We see glimpses of Laura's day, helping a shy student with his spelling test, encouraging a child who failed her quiz not to give up, sharing a laugh with the class over a history joke. Each moment paints her as a woman dedicated not just to academics, but to the hearts of her students. Yet, as the camera lingers on her desk during lunchtime, the truth quietly reveals itself. She unwraps a simple sandwich, peanut butter and jelly on plain bread, neatly packed in wax paper. No cafeteria tray, no extra sides, just the basics. She eats quickly, glancing at the worn shoes she slipped off under her desk for relief. She sighs softly, then pulls them back on before the children return. Outside the school, the small town life goes on. A father in a work truck honks as he drives by, a mother carries grocery bags into the corner store, and old Mr. Jenkins sweeps the sidewalk in front of his barber shop. Life in Willow Creek looks simple, even easy. But as the narrator reminds us, behind every smile, there is a story. Behind every quiet hero, a silent sacrifice. Laura's story is one of those sacrifices. She isn't bitter. She doesn't complain. She simply continues to give, her time, her energy, her heart. Day after day, she pours herself into her students, believing that knowledge and kindness can change the world, even if her own world feels small and heavy. And yet, the small detail of her torn shoes, so ordinary, so easy to overlook, will soon become the thread that unravels a story none of her students will ever forget. Camera fades on Laura standing in front of the chalkboard, chalk dust on her fingers, smiling as her students recite their lesson. The faint creak of her worn shoes echoes as she takes another quiet step forward. The sidewalks of Willow Creek are cracked from decades of winters, but Laura walks them as if they are old friends. She passes by neighbors mowing their lawns, children riding bicycles with training wheels, and a golden retriever barking happily from a picket-fenced yard. Everyone knows her. She has taught half the town's children, and the other half have siblings, cousins, or friends who speak of Ms. Bennett, the kind teacher. A woman calls from her porch, "Evenin', Laura." "Long day." Laura smiles warmly, raising a hand in greeting. "Every day is long," she answers with a soft laugh, "but it's worth it." She doesn't stop to chat, though. She rarely does. By the time she turns onto Willow Lane, the sun is low, casting a golden glow across her modest apartment building. The paint is chipped, and the stairs creak under her feet, but it's home, or at least the closest thing to it. Inside, the apartment is neat, tidy, but unmistakably humble. The kitchen counter is stacked with grocery store coupons, an unopened electric bill, and a half-empty coffee can she uses to store loose change. A single framed photograph sits on the bookshelf, Laura with her late mother, both smiling, arms wrapped around each other. Narrator's voice softens, reflective. Behind Laura's gentle strength was a hidden struggle, one that many would never imagine. Years of caring for her mother through illness left her with debts that seemed impossible to escape. Hospital bills stacked higher than her income. Every paycheck went first to rent, to utilities, to the smallest necessities of life. What remained was barely enough for groceries, let alone luxuries. Laura sets her satchel down and slips off her shoes. She inspects the small tear in the sole again. She presses it together with her fingers, as though willing it to heal. A sigh escapes her lips, but she quickly shakes it off. Tomorrow, she tells herself, she'll manage tomorrow. Dinner is simple, a microwaved bowl of soup, a slice of bread, and a glass of water. She sits alone at her small table, the hum of the refrigerator filling the silence. Yet even in this quiet, there is dignity. She bows her head briefly, whispering thanks, not for the food itself, but for the chance to continue serving others. The camera pans to a different part of town, the home of Principal Johnson. He's a kind man in his 50s, dedicated but constantly under pressure. His dining table is crowded with paperwork from the district office, budget cuts, grant applications, and endless forms requesting cost-saving measures. He sighs heavily, telling his wife, "I wish we could do more for the teachers. They deserve the world, and we can barely keep the lights on." Meanwhile, across the neighborhood, students' lives unfold. Sarah, a thoughtful girl with wide blue eyes, sits at the kitchen counter while her mother, a nurse, prepares for a night shift. Sarah tells her, "Mom, Ms. Bennett always says kindness is stronger than fear." Her mom smiles, ruffling her daughter's hair. "She's right, honey. She's teaching you more than just reading." Emily, Sarah's best friend, practices piano while her father listens, nodding with pride. She pauses to say, "I hope Ms. Bennett liked my essay. She always makes me feel like my words matter." Then there's Tyler, the son of a wealthy business owner. His home is sleek, modern, filled with the latest gadgets. He complains at dinner, "School's so boring. And did you see Ms. Bennett's shoes? My dad said teachers don't make much. Figures." His father chuckles dismissively, sipping wine, while his mother tries to hush him. "Tyler, show some respect. but the seed of arrogance is planted. These parallel stories reflect the contrast of Willow Creek, the humble teacher, the supportive families, the children learning values, and the wealthy few who view the world through money's lens. Back in Laura's apartment, the evening stretches on. She grades papers at her kitchen table, the lamp casting a warm glow across stacks of assignments. She circles misspelled words gently, writes encouraging notes in the margins, and smiles at the creativity of her students. Even exhausted, she gives her best to them. When the clock strikes midnight, she rubs her tired eyes and looks again at the unpaid bill on the counter. She whispers, "Just one more month. I'll find a way." She tucks it into a drawer, out of sight, and returns to her work. Narrator's tone deepens, intimate. Laura Bennett lived a life that many would call ordinary. A small apartment, a modest salary, and bills that weighed on her shoulders. Yet, within her ordinary world was something extraordinary, the ability to see light in the darkest places, to give when she had so little left to give. It was her gift, and her burden. The next morning, Laura is back at school before sunrise. She carries a thermos of coffee, a folder of lesson plans, and her steady smile. The janitor nods to her as she enters. "Morning, Ms. Bennett. You're always the first here." "Habit," she replies with a grin. In her classroom, she arranges desks, straightens posters, and writes a cheerful welcome message on the board. "Today is a new chance to shine." Her students never know how little sleep she got, or how many worries she left at home. They only see the teacher who greets them with warmth and encouragement. But even as she moves gracefully around the classroom, her shoes squeak faintly with each step, the worn soles holding on for dear life. By midday, during recess, Sarah notices something. As Laura bends to pick up a dropped notebook, her shoe shifts, and Sarah catches a glimpse of the tear. She frowns, her heart tugged with confusion. Why would her teacher, who always seems so strong, wear shoes that look like they're falling apart? She doesn't say anything, yet, but the thought lingers. Meanwhile, Tyler boasts to his friends about the new sneakers his father bought him, $200, limited edition. Ms. Bennett probably couldn't afford the laces. His friends laugh awkwardly, but deep down, they admire Ms. Bennett too much to find the joke funny. The camera cuts between Sarah's thoughtful eyes, Tyler's arrogant grin, and Laura's calm smile as she continues her lesson. This is the delicate balance of Willow Creek Middle School, kindness and cruelty, empathy and ego, woven together in one classroom. Inside, the room feels alive. Posters of American history line the walls, the Constitution, portraits of Martin Luther King Jr. and Abraham Lincoln, a hand-drawn timeline of major events stretching across the back wall. On the windowsill, a row of small potted plants, each cared for by a different student, leans toward the sunlight. At the front of the room, Ms. Bennett stands by the chalkboard, her voice steady yet warm as she begins the day's history lesson. "All right, class," she says with a smile, chalk in hand, "today we're stepping back into 1776. Who can remind me why that year was so important?" Hands shoot up. Sarah's, Emily's, and a handful of others. Laura points to Sarah. "The Declaration of Independence." Sarah replies, her voice full of confidence. "Exactly," Laura nods, her eyes sparkling with pride. A group of ordinary people stood up for something extraordinary. And what does that remind us of? A quiet voice comes from the back, Michael, a shy student who rarely speaks. That even regular people can change the world. Laura beams. "Yes, Michael. Perfectly said. Never forget that." Narrator's voice fades in gently. To Ms. Bennett, every child mattered. Every question, every answer, every small spark of courage was worth celebrating. She believed education was not about memorizing dates or facts, but about helping her students see themselves as capable of greatness. The camera pans across the classroom, showing snippets of her interactions. She kneels beside Emily's desk, helping her fix a paragraph in her essay. She encourages Sarah to read her answer aloud, building her confidence. She gently corrects Tyler when he interrupts with a sarcastic remark, turning his joke into a teaching point instead of a punishment. Her classroom isn't perfect, pencils clatter, whispers pass between friends, and Tyler doodles on his notebook instead of listening, but beneath the noise is a deep respect. The students know she cares. During group activities, laughter fills the room. Laura circulates among the desks, crouching down to talk at eye level with her students. Her patience never wavers. Even when Tyler rolls his eyes, she responds with kindness. At lunch, some students stay behind to eat with her, their brown bag lunches spread out across the desks. Sarah asks, "Ms. Bennett, did you always want to be a teacher?" Laura smiles, unwrapping her modest sandwich. "Always. When I was your age, I had a teacher who believed in me when no one else did. She made me feel like my voice mattered. And I wanted to give that gift to others." Emily tilts her head. "Do you ever get tired of it?" Laura chuckles softly. "Oh, I get tired. But never tired of you. Teaching isn't just about books, it's about people. And people are worth every bit of energy." The students grin, comforted by her words. They don't notice, or perhaps they don't yet understand, the faint wear on her shoes resting under her desk. Cut to a later scene in the afternoon. The students are working on a creative project, making a living timeline of American history. They stand in a line, each holding handmade posters, acting out different figures and events. Laughter erupts when Tyler dramatically pretends to be George Washington crossing the Delaware, nearly tripping over his own poster. Laura laughs with them, her eyes crinkling at the corners. She claps her hands. All right. History can be fun, but let's remember, these people we're studying weren't superheroes. They were ordinary, like us. They had fears, doubts, and struggles. But they believed in something greater. Narrator chimes softly. Perhaps without knowing it, Laura was speaking of herself. Ordinary, yet extraordinary. Struggling, yet giving. Teaching lessons she lived, not just lessons she read. As the final bell rings, students rush to pack up their bags. A few linger behind, chattering excitedly about the weekend. Sarah bends down to tie her shoelaces when she notices Ms. Bennett's shoe heel lift slightly, revealing a tiny split. She hesitates, frowning, but says nothing. Tyler, on the other hand, notices too. He smirks to his friend, whispering, "Guess teachers don't get paid enough for real shoes." They chuckle, but the sound is shallow, lacking conviction. Deep down, even Tyler feels a flicker of unease. Laura, unaware, waves goodbye as her students file out. Have a great evening, everyone. And remember, kindness is the best homework you can do. The hallway grows quiet again. Laura gathers her things, sliding her worn satchel over her shoulder. She looks around the classroom one last time, the posters, the desks, the sunlight filtering through the blinds, and smiles. It may not be much, but to her, it is everything. Inside room 204, the fluorescent lights flicker on as Ms. Bennett sets down her satchel. Her hair is damp from the rain despite her umbrella, and her shoes, worn thin, squeak faintly with every step across the linoleum floor. She wipes her glasses with a tissue, sighing quietly before greeting her students with her usual warmth. "Good morning, everyone. I hope you all stayed dry out there." Laughter trickles through the room as kids shake off their wet coats. But as Ms. Bennett moves to the chalkboard, her left shoe sole slips slightly against the wet floor. A faint flap echoes with each step. A few students glance down, noticing something they hadn't paid attention to before. The seam of her shoe has begun to separate, revealing the damp fabric beneath. Sarah frowns, exchanging a look with Emily. Tyler smirks, whispering to a friend, "Guess her shoes aren't waterproof." His laugh is hushed, but Laura hears. She doesn't respond, only pauses for the briefest moment before continuing her lesson with grace. Narrator's voice, low and reflective. It is often in the smallest cracks that truth begins to show. And in the cracks of Laura's worn shoes, her students were about to glimpse a reality far heavier than test scores and homework assignments. The lesson continues, but Sarah's eyes keep drifting back to Ms. Bennet's shoes. Every time her teacher walks, the flap of the sole becomes more obvious. Sarah's chest tightens with unease. Teachers are supposed to have everything under control. Why does something feel so wrong? During recess, Laura sits at her desk, carefully slipping off her shoes under the table. She pulls a small bottle of glue from her drawer, the kind meant for classroom crafts, and presses it into the gap of her shoe sole, holding it together for a few minutes before sliding the shoe back on. She glances at the clock nervously, praying it will hold. Cut to Laura's apartment that evening. The rain has stopped, but her window drips steadily. She places her soaked shoes by the door, stuffing them with old newspapers to dry them overnight. She sits heavily on her small couch, a pile of unopened bills beside her. The camera lingers on her hands as she flips through them: rent due, electricity past due, medical debt reminders. Her shoulders slump under the invisible weight. Narrator: every paycheck stretched thinner than the last. Every month, another corner to cut. And though her shoes had carried her faithfully for years, they too had reached their breaking point, much like Laura herself. She picks up a worn notebook from the coffee table, flipping through pages of her budget. Groceries, cut back again. Gas, only enough to get to work. Clothing, impossible. She circles the word shoes quietly, then scribbles it out. Instead, she writes student supplies and underlines it twice. A knock at the door startles her. It's her neighbor, Mrs. Harris, a retired teacher. Evening, Laura. I baked some banana bread. Thought you could use a little treat. Laura smiles gratefully. Thank you, Mrs. Harris. That's very kind. Mrs. Harris glances at the shoes drying by the door. Her expression softens, but she says nothing. She knows better than to wound Laura's pride. Next day at school. The sun is out, but the ground is muddy. As Laura walks across the playground to supervise recess, her shoes sink into the wet earth. When she steps onto the concrete again, the sole peels back further, a noticeable flap with each stride. A group of boys snicker, though not cruelly, more out of awkwardness. Sarah and Emily exchange a worried glance. The reality is becoming harder to ignore. Later, during math class, Laura writes equations on the board. When she turns back, a student hesitantly raises his hand. Ms. Bennett, is your shoe okay? The classroom goes silent. Laura freezes, caught off guard. She forces a smile, glancing down briefly. Oh, this old thing. Just well loved, that's all. Now, who can solve for X? The moment passes, but the silence lingers. Children sense things adults often miss: pride hidden behind humor, exhaustion tucked into a smile. That evening, Laura sits at her kitchen table, her shoes beside her. She threads a needle, attempting to stitch the sole together. The light bulb above flickers, and her fingers tremble as the thread snaps. Frustration wells up, and for a rare moment, tears spill down her cheeks. She quickly wipes them away, whispering to herself, "It's fine, Laura. Just keep going. They don't need to know." Narrator whispers softly. Poverty doesn't always look like empty cupboards or broken windows. Sometimes it looks like a teacher, mending her shoes by lamplight, determined to face another day with grace no matter the cost. Meanwhile, in their homes, students talk. Sarah tells her mother quietly, "Mom, I think Ms. Bennett's shoes are broken." Her mother, tying her nurse's uniform, frowns thoughtfully. "Maybe they are, sweetheart. Some people can't always afford new ones." "But she's a teacher," Sarah insists. "Teachers are supposed to," she trails off, unsure how to finish. Her mother kneels down, touching Sarah's cheek. "Teachers are human, honey. And sometimes, they carry more than we realize. The best thing we can do is be kind. Tyler, on the other hand, brags to his friends on the phone. My dad bought me another pair of sneakers. Ms. Bennett should ask him for a discount. I mean, come on, she's wearing shoes from the Stone Age. His friends laugh, but half-heartedly. Even Tyler feels a strange guilt gnawing at him, though he hides it behind sarcasm. Her students shuffle in, hanging damp coats on hooks, their voices buzzing with weekend stories. Sarah and Emily take their usual seats near the front, notebooks ready. Tyler slouches in the back, sneakers bright and spotless, his backpack carelessly tossed onto the floor. As Laura moves around the classroom, her shoes creak faintly. When she bends to pick up a dropped pencil, the sole of her left shoe flaps slightly. This time, it doesn't go unnoticed. Sarah leans toward Emily, whispering. Did you see that? Emily nods, frowning. It's worse than yesterday. Both girls exchange a look heavy with unspoken concern. They admire their teacher deeply, and seeing her struggle feels confusing, like discovering a crack in something you thought was unbreakable. Narrator's soft voice cuts in. Children notice things adults often overlook. They notice kindness, patience, and sacrifice. And when something doesn't add up, their hearts feel it long before their minds can explain it. During class discussion, Laura asks for volunteers to read aloud. Sarah raises her hand, her voice steady, but her eyes keep flicking down to Ms. Bennett's shoes. She stumbles over a word, something unusual for her. Laura gently corrects her, smiling warmly. Excellent effort, Sarah. Remember, it's okay to make mistakes. That's how we learn. Sarah smiles faintly, comforted, but inside, she's distracted. Her teacher who always seemed so composed is now carrying a visible reminder of struggle. At lunch, Sarah and Emily sit together at the cafeteria table. Their trays hold pizza slices and cartons of milk, but they barely eat. Emily leans in. We have to do something, she whispers. Like what? Sarah frowns. We can't just walk up and say, hey, Ms. Bennett, your shoes are broken. That would embarrass her. But we can't ignore it either, Emily insists. She's always helping us. Maybe it's our turn to help her. Their conversation is interrupted when Tyler saunters by with a group of boys. He stops at their table, grinning smugly. You two look worried. What's the problem? Did Ms. Bennett finally assign too much homework? Emily shakes her head. Nothing, Tyler. Just leave us alone. But Tyler isn't finished. He lowers his voice mockingly. Or maybe you're worried about her shoes. Did you see them this morning? I swear, my dad uses better shoes for mowing the lawn. The boys snicker, but Sarah's cheeks flush red. She snaps, that's not funny. She's the best teacher we've ever had. Tyler shrugs. I'm just saying. Maybe she should spend less time writing quotes on the chalkboard and more time shopping. The laughter dies quickly. Even the boys who joined him earlier glance down, ashamed. Sarah glares at him. Emily crosses her arms, muttering, you don't understand anything. Tyler rolls his eyes, but as he walks away, his smirk falters. For the first time, he feels a pang of guilt. Cut to classroom later that afternoon. The rain has stopped, sunlight filtering in through the blinds. Laura teaches with her usual energy, drawing maps on the board, asking students to point out states. But a few sets of eyes keep drifting toward her shoes. Michael, the shy boy from earlier, whispers to his desk partner, do you think she can't buy new ones? His partner shrugs. Maybe she doesn't want to. But Michael shakes his head. My mom says sometimes people don't have money for things they need. Even teachers. When the final bell rings, Sarah lingers behind as her classmates rush out. She approaches Ms. Bennett timidly. Ms. Bennett? Laura looks up, smiling. Yes, Sarah. Sarah hesitates, her voice soft. Are you okay? Laura tilts her head, surprised. Of course, sweetheart. Why do you ask? Sarah fumbles with her notebook. You always take care of us. I just wondered if someone's taking care of you. Laura's heart tightens, but she hides it behind a gentle smile. She kneels to Sarah's level, placing a hand on her shoulder. That's very kind of you to ask. Don't you worry, Sarah. I'm just fine. Sarah nods, though she doesn't quite believe it. As she leaves, Laura watches her go, her smile fading the moment she turns away. Scene shifts to the playground after school. Sarah and Emily walk home together, leaves crunching under their sneakers. Emily whispers, "See? Even she didn't deny it. Something's wrong. We have to help." Sarah nods slowly, determination forming in her eyes. Meanwhile, at Tyler's house, the contrast is stark. He tosses his backpack onto a leather couch, kicking off his pristine sneakers. His father is on the phone, discussing profits, while his mother scrolls through her tablet. Tyler blurts out, "Our teacher's shoes are falling apart. Isn't that weird? Don't teachers make enough?" His father laughs, shaking his head. "Son, teachers don't make anything compared to real jobs. That's why I told you, focus on business, not books." His mother frowns. "That's unkind, Jim. Teachers work hard." Tyler shrugs, unsettled. He grabs his video game controller, but for once, the game doesn't hold his attention. The image of Ms. Bennett's torn shoes lingers in his mind. Back in her apartment, Laura sits quietly by the window, sewing kit in hand. She threads the needle again, trying to mend her shoe under the dim light. Her fingers ache, but she keeps going. Every stitch is a reminder of her pride, her refusal to ask for help. She whispers to herself, "Just a little longer. They won't notice." But she doesn't know, they already have. Narrator's voice deepens, emotional. Children's hearts are tender. They may laugh, they may tease, but beneath it lies a deep sense of justice, of compassion. What began as whispers in the classroom was now growing into something more, a question none of them could ignore: what do we do when the person who always takes care of us is the one in need? The section closes with 3 split images on screen: Sarah lying awake in bed, staring at the ceiling, replaying her teacher's smile. Emily scribbling notes in her diary, "We need to help Ms. Bennett." Tyler tossing and turning, his expensive sneakers glowing in the moonlight, while guilt gnaws at him. Autumn deepens in Willow Creek, and the rhythm of small-town life continues quietly, but beneath the surface, threads begin to connect. Ms. Bennett's worn shoes have become a silent symbol, noticed by more eyes than just her students. The camera drifts through town, the diner on Main Street with its neon sign buzzing, the little library, the church with its bell tower, the modest row of homes where families juggle bills and groceries. Each place holds a piece of the story that is slowly weaving together. At the diner, Sarah's mother, Linda, works a double shift. She pours coffee for truck drivers and town regulars, her smile tired but genuine. She hears a couple of teenagers at the counter whispering about Ms. Bennett. "I think her shoes are falling apart," one says. "She's too proud to ask for help." Linda's hand pauses briefly as she sets down a mug. She knows how hard it is to stretch every dollar. That evening, she brings it up gently to Sarah: "You care about your teacher, don't you? Maybe there's a way our town can care too." Sarah's eyes light up, her determination growing. Meanwhile, Emily's father, Pastor James, is preparing for Sunday's sermon. He notices Emily scribbling furiously in her notebook and asks what she's writing. She hesitates, then admits, "It's about Ms. Bennett. She needs help, Dad, but I don't think she'll ever ask." Pastor James listens quietly, then says, "Sometimes the strongest people need the gentlest reminders that they're not alone." His words plant seeds in Emily's heart, words she'll soon repeat to others. Tyler's home paints a different picture. His father is immersed in stock market updates, bragging about profits, while his mother arranges decorations for an upcoming charity gala, the kind of event where appearances matter more than substance. At dinner, Tyler blurts out, "My teacher's shoes are ripped. It's embarrassing. Why doesn't she just buy new ones?" His father scoffs, dismissing teachers as underpaid dreamers, but his mother gives Tyler a sharp look. "Maybe she can't afford them. Did you think of that?" For the first time, Tyler feels a pang of shame, sensing the hollow nature of his family's priorities. At the same time, Michael's grandmother, who volunteers at the school library, notices Laura limping slightly as she carries a stack of books. She asks kindly, "Laura, are you all right?" Laura brushes it off with a practiced smile, "Just a little wear and tear. Nothing I can't handle." The older woman doesn't push, but her eyes soften with concern. Later, she tells Michael at dinner, "Your teacher is brave. But even brave people need kindness." The story threads tighten. Different homes, different conversations, yet the same theme, Ms. Bennett's quiet struggle. Children share whispers at the playground, parents nod knowingly at church, and a sense of community stirs, the recognition that the woman who pours her soul into teaching their children is carrying a burden she shouldn't have to bear alone. By the week's end, Sarah, Emily, and Michael are restless. They can't shake the thought that they need to act. Sarah doodles a picture of shoes in her notebook during math. Emily drafts a secret plan in her diary. Michael rehearses what he might say if he ever found the courage to bring it up. Even Tyler, though he pretends not to care, lingers near the classroom door a little longer than usual, his eyes flicking toward those tattered shoes. The section closes with a visual montage, the diner lights flickering off as Linda locks the door, Pastor James polishing his sermon notes, Tyler staring at his sneakers beside his bed, and Laura alone at her apartment kitchen table, the sound of her needle-piercing worn leather. Across the town, people are beginning to connect the dots, unaware that they are all becoming part of the same story. Saturday arrives with the crisp breath of autumn hanging in the air, the kind that paints cheeks rosy and carries the scent of leaves drifting from the trees. Willow Creek stirs earlier than usual, as if the whole town knows something special is about to unfold. The churchyard, usually quiet on weekends, buzzes with life. Folding tables line the grassy lawn, covered with homemade pies, warm cookies, brownies, and jars of preserves that sparkle like jewels in the morning sun. Hand-painted signs, made by Emily and her friends, flap gently in the breeze, "Bake sale, for someone special." Families from every corner of town arrive, carrying trays, donating goods, and offering their time. Michael stands proudly at the front table, helping his grandmother organize pastries, while Emily rushes around with a clipboard, making sure each booth has volunteers. Sarah greets customers with her bright smile, telling everyone, "Every dollar goes to someone who's given more than we could ever repay." Tyler, surprisingly energetic, sets up boxes of cookies with his mother, who chats warmly with neighbors she hadn't spoken to in years. The event is more than a fundraiser, it's becoming a reunion, a weaving of old and new connections tied together by purpose. The turnout is far greater than the children expected. The local band strums cheerful tunes on acoustic guitars, creating an atmosphere of festivity. Kids run around with frosting-smeared faces, parents laugh with friends over cups of cider, and coins clink steadily into the donation jars. People don't just buy a cookie or two, they donate 10, 20, even $50, some quietly slipping folded bills into the boxes without taking anything in return. Compassion ripples through the crowd like wildfire. Meanwhile, Ms. Bennett remains blissfully unaware. On this very morning, she walks to the small school library to prepare next week's lessons, humming softly as she balances a stack of textbooks. Her shoes, worn and patched, creak with each step. She has no idea that just a few blocks away, her students and neighbors are working tirelessly to honor her. Back at the churchyard, the children share updates with each other like it's a secret treasure hunt. "We've already raised over 300. Michael exclaims. Emily gasps when she sees another customer place a check into the jar. Sarah, her eyes glistening, whispers, "She's going to be so surprised." Tyler, though trying to keep his cool, can't hide the pride swelling in his chest. "She won't believe it," he mutters, a small grin tugging at his lips. The afternoon stretches on, and the bake sale only grows more lively. The hardware store owner donates an entire day's profits after hearing about the cause. The shoe store owner stops by personally, promising to help the kids pick out a pair of shoes that will last her a lifetime. Even townsfolk who never knew Ms. Bennet well come forward, moved by the sheer dedication of the children. By late afternoon, the fundraising jar is overflowing. Bills stick out at odd angles, coins spill onto the table, and Emily scrambles to count while Sarah writes totals in her neat handwriting. When the final tally comes in, the children can hardly believe it. Over $2,000. Enough not only for a beautiful new pair of shoes but also for clothing, supplies, and even a cushion for unexpected needs. The weight of it brings silence to the little group for a moment, as though they are all realizing together the magnitude of what love and unity can accomplish. As the sun sets, painting the sky in shades of gold and crimson, the bake sale winds down. Families pack up tables, children lick the last crumbs of frosting from their fingers, and laughter lingers in the air like a warm embrace. The town disperses, carrying with it a shared secret, a quiet anticipation for the reveal that is yet to come. The children huddle together at the edge of the yard, their faces glowing with exhaustion and joy. Emily clutches the envelope of collected money to her chest as if it were a sacred treasure. Sarah looks around at her friends and whispers, "Tomorrow, we give it to her." The others nod, the reality of what they've done settling in. Their hearts beat fast, nervous, excited, and full of hope. The scene closes with the image of the four friends walking home under the canopy of autumn trees, the streetlights flickering on one by one. They carry nothing in their hands but everything in their hearts. Tomorrow, their teacher's world will change. And in that change, theirs already has. Monday morning arrives, carrying with it the ordinary sounds of school, lockers slamming, sneakers squeaking against linoleum floors, and the steady hum of chatter as students file into classrooms. But for Ms. Bennet's class, nothing feels ordinary. There's a buzz in the air, a current of excitement that zips between the children like static. Emily clutches the sealed envelope tightly against her chest, Sarah keeps glancing at the clock as though the hands can't move fast enough, Michael fidgets in his seat, and even Tyler, usually the picture of laid-back indifference, drums his fingers nervously on the desk. When Ms. Bennet enters the room, balancing her usual stack of books, the chatter dies instantly. Her patched shoes scuff against the tile as she makes her way to the desk, smiling warmly at her students. She notices their odd silence, tilting her head slightly. "You're all unusually well behaved this morning," she teases, setting her books down. "Should I be worried?" A few children giggle, but no one gives away the secret. Sarah takes a deep breath. She exchanges a glance with Emily, then slowly rises from her seat. "Ms. Bennet," she says, her voice trembling with a mix of fear and determination, "there's something we need to tell you. Actually, something we need to give you." The teacher blinks in surprise, her smile soft but curious. "Oh. What's this all about?" Before Sarah can answer, Emily stands and walks to the front of the room. Her small hands clutch the envelope so tightly that her knuckles turn white. She hesitates, then looks up into Ms. Bennet's eyes. We wanted to say thank you. For everything. For always being here for us, for making us believe in ourselves, even when things were hard." Her voice breaks slightly, but she pushes through. "So we decided to do something for you." She gently places the envelope on the desk in front of her teacher. Ms. Bennet stares at it, bewildered. "What is this?" she whispers. Tyler, uncharacteristically serious, stands next. "It's not just from us. It's from the whole town. Everyone wanted to help. Because you deserve it." Confused, Ms. Bennet slowly opens the envelope. As she pulls out the thick stack of bills and checks, her eyes widen. The classroom falls completely silent except for the faint rustle of paper. For a moment, she doesn't breathe, her hands trembling as she realizes what she's holding. I don't understand, she says softly, her voice breaking. Michael, his face flushed, blurts out the truth. It's for new shoes. We noticed yours were old and falling apart. But then, it just grew into something more. Everyone wanted to help. Tears fill Ms. Bennett's eyes. She presses her hand against her mouth, trying to steady herself, but the emotion overwhelms her. Her students, seeing her cry, suddenly feel the weight of their act, not as children helping a teacher, but as people touching a life. She sinks into her chair, the envelope still in her hands, and looks at the faces of her students. You have no idea what this means to me, she whispers, her voice shaking. All my life, I've tried to teach you that kindness matters, that even small gestures can change the world. But today, you're the ones teaching me. The classroom becomes a sea of emotion. Some students wipe tears from their eyes, others can't stop smiling. Sarah steps closer, laying a gentle hand on her teacher's shoulder. We just wanted you to feel what you've made us feel, every single day. At that moment, Ms. Bennett notices something on her desk, a shoebox, wrapped carefully in brown paper and tied with string. Emily pushes it forward with trembling hands. Open it, she says softly. With tears blurring her vision, Ms. Bennett unties the string and lifts the lid. Inside rests a pair of beautiful new shoes, sturdy yet elegant, the kind that will last her for years. She runs her fingers across the smooth leather, her breath catching in her throat. The contrast is undeniable, the worn, cracked shoes on her feet and the shining new pair before her, symbols of her students' love and the community's respect. The room erupts in applause, laughter, and tears. Some students rush forward to hug her, while others clap so hard their hands sting. Ms. Bennett, overwhelmed, stands and embraces Sarah, then Emily, then Michael, and finally even Tyler, who blushes as he accepts the hug. For the first time in years, Ms. Bennett feels seen, valued not just for her role as a teacher but for who she is as a person. And for the students, it is the moment they realize the true power of empathy, that even children, when united, can move mountains. The bell rings, signaling the end of class, but no one moves. They stay in that moment, soaking in the warmth of what they've created together. It is more than a gift of shoes. It is a gift of dignity, of love, of gratitude. And it changes all of them forever. The classroom feels different now. The walls that once held posters of multiplication tables and inspirational quotes seem to hum with a new energy, an energy born out of compassion and love. Ms. Bennett sits at her desk, the shoebox open in front of her, her new shoes gleaming under the fluorescent lights. Around her, the students remain seated, not because they are required to, but because none of them want to leave. They know they've just witnessed something extraordinary, something they will carry with them for the rest of their lives. Ms. Bennett lifts her head and takes a long, steadying breath. Her eyes, still wet with tears, sweep across the faces of her students. She sees Sarah, clutching her hands tightly in her lap, her cheeks streaked with emotion. Emily leans against the desk, her lips trembling but her eyes shining with pride. Michael fiddles nervously with his pencil, his face red but hopeful. Even Tyler sits straighter than usual, his expression softened by sincerity. I don't think I've ever been this speechless in my entire life, Ms. Bennett begins, her voice quiet but steady. The room falls silent again, every child hanging on her words. You have given me something I can never repay. Not just these shoes, she gently touches the box, but something far greater. You've shown me that what I've tried to teach you all these years has taken root. You've shown me that kindness, real kindness, exists in this world. Her words strike deep. The students exchange glances, their hearts swelling. Ms. Bennett continues, her voice trembling now with raw emotion. There were days when I wondered if I was making a difference. Days when I went home and questioned if anyone even noticed how much I cared. Teaching isn't easy. Life isn't easy. But this moment, she pauses, pressing her hand against her chest, this moment tells me that every struggle was worth it. Emily steps closer, her small voice breaking the heavy silence. You changed us, Ms. Bennet. You didn't just teach us math or reading, you taught us how to care about people. That's why we wanted to do this. Ms. Bennet's heart clenches. She reaches out and pulls Emily into a hug, holding her tightly. One by one, other students begin to gather around, forming a circle of warmth. Even Tyler, who usually avoids such displays, steps forward and awkwardly places his hand on Ms. Bennet's shoulder. You always told us that no act of kindness is ever wasted, he mutters. Guess you were right. The room fills with soft laughter, the tension breaking just enough to let joy filter through the tears. Ms. Bennet pulls back slightly, looking at them all. I wish you could see yourselves the way I see you. You are the future, and if this is what the future looks like, then I think our world is in good hands. She slips off her worn, torn shoes, holding them in her hands for a moment. They are more than just footwear, they are a symbol of every sacrifice, every quiet struggle she endured for the sake of her students. Then she sets them gently aside and lifts the new shoes from the box. Sliding them onto her feet, she feels a strange sense of transformation, as if the weight she's carried for years has lifted just a little. The children clap and cheer, their smiles wide, their pride unmistakable. For a brief moment, Ms. Bennet closes her eyes. Memories of long nights grading papers, early mornings skipping breakfast to get to school on time, and quiet tears shed over bills flood her mind. But they're washed away by this present moment, this outpouring of love and gratitude that has erased her doubts. She feels lighter, freer, as though she has been given not just shoes, but a new lease on life. She turns back to the class, her voice steady again. I promise you this, I will never forget what you've done today. And I will spend the rest of my life making sure you know just how powerful your kindness is. Sarah, tears still glistening on her cheeks, whispers, we'll never forget either. And though the classroom clock ticks steadily toward dismissal, no one wants to move. They linger in that rare kind of silence that comes not from awkwardness but from deep connection. It is a silence filled with unspoken promises, to carry kindness forward, to notice the struggles others try to hide, and to always remember that compassion has the power to heal wounds no one else can see. For Ms. Bennet, this day will forever be etched in her heart. For her students, it will be the lesson that defines their lives. And for both, it is the moment where teacher and students are bound not by curriculum, but by love. The final bell rings, its echo filling the classroom, but still no one rises to leave. It's as though every student and their teacher knows this moment is too important to rush away from, too sacred to treat like just another day of school. Outside, the faint hum of traffic and chatter in the hall reminds them that the world continues on, but inside, something remarkable has taken place. Something that will remain carved in their hearts forever. Ms. Bennet finally breaks the silence. Her eyes shimmer with tears, but this time they are not born from sadness or exhaustion, but from gratitude. She places her hands gently on the desk, leaning forward as though she wants her words to be etched deep into each of her students' souls. Today, she says softly, you taught me just as much as I've ever taught you. Maybe even more. I thought I was the one shaping your lives, but you've shown me that love, compassion, and kindness can grow stronger than any lesson I've ever written on this board. The students listen with rapt attention. Michael, usually restless by this time of day, is completely still. Emily clasps Sarah's hand, and Tyler stares at the floor, blinking back emotion he doesn't want anyone to notice. Ms. Bennet takes a deep breath and continues. I want you to carry this with you, long after you leave this classroom. The world isn't always fair. There will be days when you'll meet people who don't see you, who don't notice your struggles, who don't care about what you're going through. But kindness, she pauses, her voice trembling, kindness has the power to break through all of that. What you did for me today proves that the smallest gesture can change someone's world. Sarah raises her hand timidly, but doesn't wait to be called on. Ms. Bennet, you always tell us to leave people better than we found them. Maybe that's what we were trying to do. The teacher's lips tremble into a smile. She nods slowly, her hand pressing to her chest. Yes, Sarah. That's exactly it. The students exchange glances, realizing together the depth of what they've accomplished. It wasn't about the shoes. It was never just about the shoes. It was about seeing a need and choosing to act, about taking the lesson their teacher had lived in front of them every day and reflecting it back when she least expected it. Ms. Bennet steps around the desk, standing among her students. She looks at each one of them, as though memorizing their faces, wanting to hold on to this memory forever. You've given me a gift far beyond anything material. You've reminded me why I chose this profession, why I've given my life to it. And most of all, you've reminded me that when we pour love into others, it always comes back to us, sometimes when we need it most. She bends down, picks up her old torn shoes from the floor, and holds them gently. These, she says, her voice soft but steady, are not just worn-out shoes anymore. They'll be a reminder. A reminder that even in brokenness, beauty can be found. That even when life feels heavy, kindness can lift us. I'll keep them, not because of what they are, but because of what this moment means. The students nod, some wiping away fresh tears. There's a collective understanding in the room, a bond that goes far beyond teacher and student. It's a bond rooted in empathy, respect, and love. Finally, the dismissal bell fades into silence, and the students begin gathering their belongings. Yet, instead of rushing out the door like usual, they linger. They hug their teacher, one by one. Emily clings the longest, whispering, "We love you, Ms. Bennet." "I love you too," Ms. Bennet replies, her voice breaking. "More than you'll ever know." As the classroom empties, the sunlight slants through the windows, casting golden patterns across the floor. Ms. Bennet stands alone for a moment, looking down at her new shoes, then at the old ones resting on the desk. A quiet smile spreads across her face. She realizes that this was never just about her worn shoes. It was about something much bigger, about the power of compassion, the resilience of the human spirit, and the way love multiplies when shared. She whispers softly to herself, "This is the lesson I'll carry for the rest of my life." And though the school day has ended, the real teaching has just begun, not through textbooks or chalkboards, but through a living example of kindness that her students will carry into their futures. Whether they become doctors, mechanics, parents, or teachers themselves, they will remember this day, the day their classroom became more than a room in a school, but a place where love and humanity shined brighter than anything else.